Thank you very much. Good afternoon. I am Minaguchi. I'd like to talk about the current Japanese situations and about some fundamental issues associated. First of all, I'd like to talk about the timelines of HPV vaccines in Japan. In 2009, GlaxoSmithKline Cervarix was approved. In 2011 rather, Gardasil of MSD was launched. In Japan, these are the only two vaccines in Japan, and Gardasil 9 is not approved in Japan. For your information, MSD is called Merck in the EU. Therefore, to foreign guest speakers, the name Merck may be mentioned, and that means MSD. Now in Japan, in 2010, the year after Cervarix was approved, the catch-up program was implemented, which is to give public subsidies to immunization. So HPV vaccines were made available free of charge. In Japan, for vaccination, there's voluntary vaccination and routine vaccinations. Voluntary vaccinations is to be paid by the person receiving the vaccination, and the decision can be made by the individuals. For routine vaccines, the national government recommends the vaccination, and the cost is free of charge. However, in the case of HPV vaccines, legally it was involuntary program. However, people could receive the vaccination free of charge, as in the routine vaccination as a catch-up program. There's no such a precedent before. Now, because of this catch-up program, the coverage rate at one time exceeded 80%. In April 2003, HPV vaccine was officially and publicly legally included in the national immunization system. However, very serious side effects were reported, and as a result, the National Network of Cervical Cancer Vaccine Victims were formed. And only 2 months after including in the routine vaccination program, the national government stopped active recommendation. However, legally, the HPV vaccine is still legally in the routine program, which is quite an unnatural state, and it's been for 5 years. Currently, the coverage rate is less than 1%. I believe that officially the vaccine should be taken out of the routine program. Now, this is the photograph from 2013 when the National Network of Cervical Cancer Vaccine Victims were organized. This is the press meeting. Currently, there are more than 600 people as a member of the program. Now, HPV vaccines, what are the symptoms of side effect? The HPV vaccines, the side effects include headache, joint pain, involuntary motion, the weakness, cognitive impaired learning, and menstrual disorders. It covers a whole body. The slide shows the symptoms in sensory, motor, cognitive, and autonomic systems in 4 categories, but the list is only a part of the entire symptoms. Now, for side effects, the Japanese clinicians have published papers from the victims they have treated. Dr. Akazuki Nishioka and Dr. Shunpei Yokota has given reports of symptoms of 104 victims. There are 139 symptoms, and top 10 symptoms include headache, weakness, the malaise, fatigue, sleep disorders, numbness in limbs, memory impairs, muscular weakness, decline academic abilities, and menstrual disorders. Dr. Shuichi Ikeda published a report of 98 patients, headache, systemic malaise, difficulty waking up, the limb weakness, limb pain, nausea, and impaired learning. The symptoms are quite diverse. Dr. Yukitoshi Takahashi reported the result of treating 32 patients. The symptoms are diverse, and they're separated into motor symptoms, sensory, autonomic nerve, cognitive, neurological, and psychiatric disorders. As you may have noticed already, the papers that I have explained to you shows all the patients with diverse symptoms. However, there are commonalities in the symptoms that are reported. That it's not just the symptoms are diverse, but such diverse symptoms can be seen in a single patient, and as with time there are changes, clustering and fluctuations and changes in the symptoms. Furthermore, there are some symptoms that develop quite some time after the immunization. Multiple physicians have looked at patients independently, and they have independently published reports. However, when you look at the symptoms as side effects, there are a lot of commonalities, which I believe is a very important point. The overall picture of the symptoms could be categorized as clear diseases. However, they are not, and we cannot fully explain the symptoms. Now, what is the frequency of such adverse event or side effects? The MHLW reports that from launch until August 31st, 3.4 million people have been vaccinated. That's until August 31st, 2017, and 3,130 adverse events had been reported. And adding to drugs together, the frequency is 1 out of every 1,000, and 57% of them are quite severe. The slide shows the adverse event reports per 1 million doses. Compared to other vaccines, you can see that there are far more reports of adverse events for the two HPV vaccines. Now, under the Japanese relief system for the negligent side effects of Japanese vaccines, we have the data for 1 million persons for disabilities and deaths. The data has been adjudicated for individual cases. However, the frequency is 10 times as much for HPV vaccines compared to others, which means that their symptoms are quite serious and grave. HPV vaccines, there are diverse symptoms, and this could mean that some patients cannot write simple Chinese characters, cannot do simple calculations, so do not remember the ways to school or home. In 2014, I met with a victim for the first time, and there was her mother right next to her, but the girl said she's looking for her mother, and I was very surprised. I still remember this very clearly. Now, as I said earlier, for HPV vaccine, I am a representative of the lawyers, attorneys, and 80% of all the plaintiffs have suffered from the symptoms, as we know. In Japan, there's a Nagoya survey and Sofue group survey. These are two epidemiological studies. They're not designed sufficiently in order to demonstrate any causal relationships. However, even with such quality, such surveys with quality issues, still the symptoms that are common in Nagoya survey and the software survey, when you look at the specific symptoms, as you can see on the table, there are memory disturbances, gait disturbances, sensitivity to light, and weakness. Those are very characteristic symptoms of HPV vaccine side effects. The people who deny the risk of HPV vaccine say that the symptoms claimed by the victims are not caused by vaccines, but they're common among the adolescent girls. But as you can see, these are the symptoms that cannot be explained as such. Now, in 2014, the Yakugai person conducted a survey, interview survey, together with the National Network of Cervical Cancer Vaccine Victims and Lawyers Network. Furthermore, the Medwatcher, the lawyers groups have also done some interviews with the victims, and there are some very serious, grave damages caused And this includes physical sufferings, changes in daily life, changes in life courses, loss of future hope, burden of treatment, and nursing care. The these damages affect not only the victims of the vaccines, but it will change the lives of family members as well. Another difficulty is the distress derived from the lack of understanding, and this causes a lot of sufferings. Many of the patient, the victims had been said that they are faking their diseases, and people are called lazy. The internet and publications say these claims are fabricated or fake, unscientific, and these charges still make the victim suffer quite a lot. The Japanese Ministry of Health and Labor Welfare have looked into the symptoms, but what they say is that these are responses in the mind and body induced by the painful stimulation of needle as well as fears against pain, which means they want to say that there are no problems in vaccine design and ingredients. However, it is believed that the side effects have been caused by the HPV vaccine design and ingredients. And I'd like to explain to you a part of it. HPV vaccine consists of L1 protein as a main ingredient, and this protein has the characteristics of activating natural immunity. In order to promote the immune responses, aluminum adjuvants are included, and this also have a characteristics of enhancing natural immunity. Furthermore, L1 proteins have some molecular similarities with human molecules. Therefore, it could induce autoimmune phenomenon, which is to attack their own molecules as foreign substances. Furthermore, the product maintains high level of titer over a long period of time. It has some special features to maintain a high level of the potency. Such design and ingredients are believed to be the cause of such adverse or side effects. So far, I have talked about the danger and risk of HPV vaccines. Let me look briefly into the efficacy. The efficacy of HPV vaccines are uncertain and limited. The preventive effect of cervical cancer by the vaccine is not demonstrated. Therefore, the brochure of the ministry only says that the prevention is expected. That's all, because that's all they can write about. Furthermore, in precancerous cellular change, abnormality, suppressive effect, may be seen to a certain extent. However, the duration of the efficacy is limited, and only it is active on certain types of cancer cells. Also, we have a screening system, which is a preventive measure without any side effects. Now, recently, in Japan, the Ministry of Health have revised their leaflet, and it says that the estimate concerning preventive effect of cervical cancer by HPV vaccine, they say that 859 to 595 people out of 100,000 can avoid developing the cancer, and per 100,000 persons, 209 to 144 can avoid death from cervical cancer. However, this is the data on reduction of precancerous lesion and the prevention of cancer as the same thing, and they expect the efficacy of vaccine to last for a lifetime, but such an assumption, ungrounded assumption, is the basis of the hope and expectation of the efficacy. HPV infection does not mean that there is going to be a cancer development. The probability is very low, and even when there is an HPV infection, most of them are released outside, and only a very small fraction develops into cancer. Vaccine manufacturers that the development percentage is 0.15%. Furthermore, the root of infection is this is a sexual transmission. In order to prevent such a disease, to immunize into healthy young female with the risk of adverse or the side effects that we do not know, is it really necessary? We need to question. Now, vaccines are given to healthy people for prevention of the disease that one may never develop. That means a very high level of safety and efficacy is demonstrated, and for the public authority to recommend a high level of necessity is necessary. However, the process of review and approval to inclusion into routine vaccine program for HPV vaccine had lacked caution. It was done in haste. The ministry have recommended the filing for the approval even before the completion of the clinical trials, and the immunization was given free of charge. These are very, very unusual treatments. Now, there is the expert board for eradication of cervical cancer, which is the group of experts, and the advocacy group. They have approached media, lawmakers, local governments, and others. The members of the board include the chairpersons and presidents of various societies, including Japanese societies of OBGY. However, the Yakugai ombudsperson conducted a survey about the donation paid to this expert board, and it was identified that of all the pharmaceutical manufacturers association members, only the HPV vaccine manufacturers donated to this expert board. Furthermore, the secretariat of the expert board was served by the former vaccine marketing director of GSK, which is the manufacturer of Cervarix. The activities of the expert board is indeed a promotion in the face of education. Now, what are the current actions taken by the industry, academia, and the government? The Japanese Society for OBGY and other organizations are requesting that the active recommendation be restarted. These are the promotion done by the expert committee, and the organizations that have sent the directors into this the panel, and those who recommend the restart of vaccination, there are a lot of overlaps. The state governments say that they're going to help support the victims. However, what they're doing is mediocre at best, and they're denying the causal relationships. Current status is very far from the actual relief, and right now we cannot foresee what will happen in the future. In Japan, with the effort of the victims of drug-induced summon calamities and lawsuits, we have a relief system for the harm and damage when there are no negligence. However, the disability must be very severe for the victims to receive a compensation. So this relief system is not actually a relief to all. Now, in March 2016, the victims have filed a group lawsuit. This is the picture from the press meeting when we explained that we are going to file a lawsuit. And in July 2016, in Tokyo, Osaka, Nagoya, and Fukuoka, in these four the local courts, we have filed a lawsuit. Currently, there are 123 plaintiffs in the lawsuit. This is the photograph when the lawsuit was filed. The attorneys group wanted to separate the region so that wherever the victims reside, they can participate in this action. the purpose of the lawsuit is not just to receive compensation. Through the lawsuit, we wanted to clarify the responsibilities of the state government and the companies. We wanted improvement of the research system, the healthcare system, support education and employment, offer sufficient amount of information, and eliminate lack of understanding and stigma. Also, we are demanding that vaccine policies be revised to prevent any future damages. We want this to be an opportunity to develop a system. This is what the past lawsuits have achieved, and this is what we would like to follow suit. Now, I would like to explain a little about the legal system that we have. In the lawsuit to the national government, we are demanding compensation indemnity. To the companies, we are suing for the product liabilities and tort liabilities. We believe that for approval, catch-up program, routine immunization inclusion, and explanation to the recipients for each, we say that both state governments and companies do have responsibilities. Now, the Japanese class action is not exactly the same as Western class action system. And the class action means that if the representative of the groups file a lawsuit, the judgment of the lawsuit can cover the whole group, but that is not the system in Japan. However, with various ideas and plans, we have functioned to be a relief to those people who have not joined the lawsuit. The slide shows the pledge monument that is at the front lawn of the Ministry of Health, and it says the determination by the ministry that it will never repeat the drug-induced calamities as in thalidomide, similar HIV infections, that they will never repeat. However, it's not been effective. In order to relieve the victims and to prevent further drug-induced calamity, support of the citizen is vital. And there are organizations supporting HPV vaccine lawsuits. The support is growing, and we have received messages from foreign victims when we put together the support network. Here, this slide is the slide from the overseas victims groups. I hope that this symposium could be useful. I hope that this symposium will be a good opportunity for us to join together and contribute into solution to the problems associated with HPV vaccines. Thank you very much.